I love the idea of eating a plant-based diet. I think it will contribute to my longevity, among other things. But I was a type 2 insulin-dependent diabetic for 30 years before I rebelled against my doctors and started eating the keto diet. In 2 years of keto, lots of animal foods and avocados, I lost 200 pounds. I'm trying to transition back to a more balanced whole food diet. However, a lot of the foods recommended for vegans are really problematic for me. Potatoes, grains, and beans drive my blood pressure up like crazy. I can handle most green vegetables and low glycemic index foods, but most tropical fruit, grapes, apples, etc. also drive up my blood sugars. I am daunted by the prospect of living entirely off low glycemic index berries and green vegetables. Are there any doctors out there who can help a recovering carnivore like Robbie and Cyrus? Please help.
A recovering carnivore, I think that's a great term, actually. So let's say that you decided, all right, fine, I understand the research, and I do want to make a change. I'm either carnivorous now, and I don't want to be anymore, or I'm low carbohydrate, and I don't want to be anymore. How do I do that? Okay. So we teach people, just like you said, we want you to walk slowly. We want you to walk slowly for a number of reasons. Number one, if you make the change too fast to going from being, primarily carnivorous to primarily plant-based, it's going to be very hard to do. You're not going to know what to buy at the grocery store. You're not going to know how much to eat. You're not going to know, your taste buds literally will not be satisfied when you're eating plant foods because they're not accustomed to it. Your digestive system will hate you. And it can become this like large sort of logistical and emotional nightmare that most people who try the sort of cold turkey switch all of a sudden are like, oh my God, this is too difficult. I can't do this. This was a bad idea. And then their conclusion is, oh, well, those mastering diabetes guys don't know what they're talking about. Or this whole plant-based world doesn't know what they're talking about. This doesn't work. I tried it. Trust me, it doesn't work. And the answer is, well, okay, you might have tried it, but number one, you made the transition too quickly. You can't really say that you've tried something unless you've been very systematic about it over the process of at least 90 days, if not more. So we're a fan of doing things systematically. Just like James Clear talks about in his book, Atomic Habits, okay? We're talking about micro habits that accumulate over the course of time to completely change the direction of your life. So I'm not going to tell you to go change all your food in one shot because I know that it's not going to work for you. I know that it's going to cause you to be more anxious. I know that you're likely to just revert to your old habits, and then you're going to say, this is silly. So what we teach people to do, which is actually like paramount in this process, is you got to walk slowly. So we teach people, okay, let's change your breakfast to start. Okay, and when I say change your breakfast to start, we give you a whole collection of recipes, and we teach you the methodology for trying to increase your carbohydrate intake and lower your fat and protein intake and get rid of all animal products. Do that for one meal. And literally, don't change your lunch, don't change your dinner, don't change your snacks, nothing. Leave it the same. You make one change, and you let that change go until you start to get the hang of it. I want you to start to digest food properly. I want you to not have to go to the bathroom quickly. I want you to be able to think clearly after that meal. I want you to get a good blood glucose response from that one meal. I want you to practice that meal and figure out the logistics about it so that way you feel comfortable that you have the AM hours down. After you do that, I mean, it could take a week, it could take 3 weeks, it could take a month. I don't care. It's not a race. Eventually you get to lunch, and then you fix your lunch. So now you got breakfast and you got lunch. That could take up another week or month. And then eventually you'll get to your dinner. That could take another week. That could take another month. And over the course of time, you've assembled your breakfast and your lunch and your dinner. And not only are you going to be able to give your digestive system a little bit more time to adapt to a completely different collection of organic material, okay, more vitamins, minerals, fiber, water, antioxidants, and phytochemicals, but you're also going to be able to adapt to less protein and less fat. And the true kicker in this is that the fiber, literally the cellulose that you are putting into your mouth that comes prepackaged in all of these plant-rich foods can become very problematic for people that have been eating a low carbohydrate and or animal-based diet for a long period of time because they don't have the machinery to be able to process foods that are complex, that contain a significant amount of fiber. Okay, they don't have the digestive biochemistry inside of their small intestine to be able to unpack these foods properly. And then their microbiome doesn't have the digestive power to be able to manufacture cellulase, to be able to break down those cellulosic fibers, to turn them into short-chain fatty acids and actually use those for signaling molecules. So you have to give yourself time, both from a mental and emotional perspective, but also from a physiological perspective, because if you don't, you're likely to end up making a transition that's too quick and then feeling uncomfortable, not enjoying the process, and then reverting back to your old habits. And then a few days later, you're saying nothing changed. This whole plant-based diet thing doesn't work for me. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. And I have a sort of a parallel example. I've always liked to run and do triathlons and so on. So every now and then someone will approach me and say, hey, I want to do a marathon. You got a 120-day, 4-month program for a marathon. And I always say, you know what, it might work for you, a 4-month program, but depending on how much running you've been doing, you're going to risk ligaments and tendons and all kinds of things. And it may work. It could be painful. Why don't you take more time? Take 3 years or something like that and get the body to adjust so that your ligaments and tendons strengthen and all the parts are there. You get a good running stride so you don't wreck your knees and figure out the right shoes and all that stuff. It's just a whole lot better outcome. And the people who've done that, have gone and qualified for Boston and done some really good times. But I've seen a lot of people do one marathon, 120 days, and say, oh, it hurt the whole time. And that was no fun, but I'm glad I did it. It was a bucket list item, and that's it. And then they go back to being sedentary.
Yeah, that's actually a phenomenal analogy. You're right, because there's so many things in life that require time, right? Getting involved in athletics is one of those. There's no question. I mean, you literally the world's best athletes or recreational athletes that want to become even better. If they're trying to lift a little bit more weight or they're trying to become more flexible, they're trying to improve their running time. You can't expect that you're going to do that over the course of 30 days. It literally can take a year to make significant gains in strength, flexibility, or endurance. Similarly, if you're trying to learn, you're trying to change your career, right? You can't expect that over the course of the next 30 days, you're going to absorb everything there is to know about accounting, because you're going to have to put in the time and learn a little bit every single day over the course of a year to 2 years to 3 years to eventually have the skill set to be able to transition to your lifestyle or your career to being an accountant, right? The same thing happens with diet. But yet I think in the world in which we live, one of the things that really becomes problematic is that when you go to the grocery store and you take a look at the magazines which are being marketed to you, it's all about fast results. Okay? You always see these things that say, like, get the beach body you deserve in the next 30 days.
In 30 days, yeah.
25 pounds in the next 30 days. You go to Instagram and you see pictures of people basically showing off their bodies, drinking green smoothies, and it promotes this idea that, like, I have to do this now. The entire world in which we live is all about instant gratification, right? You can order food and it'll be at your door in 15 minutes. You can watch any movie you want from Netflix or Amazon and you can get it in 3 minutes, right? So we have become programmed to believe that in all aspects of our lifestyle that fast is better and fast is the way to do things. But in reality, when it comes to changing your diet, fast is not the way to do things. You got to do it slowly and you got to do it systematically. And if you do it that way, the chances of you succeeding in developing a whole new collection of habits goes way up, and the chances of you actually transitioning your lifestyle to something that's more sustainable goes way up.